Unlike his counterparts, George Washington was not a formally educated man. His education came through social interactions and observations that he found in everyday life, as well as his brother, who brought home a lot of the things that he learned in his travels in the British Navy. When he was a young boy, Lawrence sparked an interest with his stories of maritime warfare, and George Washington almost joined the Royal Navy, but at the last minute, he decided to stay home because of his mother's insistence that he not leave her. Instead, he became a surveyor for the Fairfax family on the western frontier and learned how to take care of himself. Um, his brother Lawrence later died in Barbados with George at his side, and he died of tuberculosis, an experience that George would carry with him throughout his life. George Washington was not a stranger to disease. He suffered from diphtheria, malaria, tuberculosis, pneumonia, smallpox, and because of these experiences with disease, he didn't shy away from visiting his men who were sick and dying in tents to offer them hope and courage. Early on in his career as a general, he would surround himself with the most curious of men because he knew that they would bring experiences and insight into making decisions. The French-born Lafayette, the Baron von Steuben, the Polish General Dachau, all of them men who wanted to fight for freedom. His early life as a surveyor and as a tactician, as a colonel in the French and Indian War, served him well as a general in the Revolutionary War. He was a man of great character. And from an early life, social standing was important to him. And he would practice the rules of civility in conversation and in company, and he would write those rules out in a notebook that he kept. Being a man of great character, he took pride in reading the character of the men that he surrounded himself with. The most heartbreaking moment of his career was the personal and professional embarrassment at not being able to read the character of the proper character of Benedict Arnold, a man that he considered a great friend and ally. The heartbreak that he experienced from that was so deeply cutting that he didn't want to even utter Arnold's name ever again. He refused to take money during his tenure as general and even as president of the United States, even though he had made himself poor by pretty much donating everything that he had made with his plantation to the efforts of the Revolutionary War. At one time, he didn't even have enough money to make post for a letter from Valley Forge. And again, he found himself in dire straits and had to borrow money to make his inaugural visit to New York City from Mount Vernon. At the meeting house in Newburgh, New York, when he had to address his officers who were in revolt over a weak and inactive government, he found himself embarrassed at the need of using glasses, and he stated that he had become gray and nearly blind in the service of his country. He was a man of great faith. He took it upon himself to see the way that the hand of Providence was working in his life and expressed it fondly in conversation and in his writings. There has been some debate as to whether Washington was a man of great faith or not, but in my mind, there is no debate. He used the word God 146 times in his writing, and he would constantly use the words the invisible hand and providence. He was baptized at Valley Forge in front of a large group of people and was seen going off to be by himself for quiet contemplation, to pray for himself, his men, and the ability to lead them. He never felt himself up to the task of that everybody expected him to be. George Washington was just a man. He was a man who worked in the fields of his home in Mount Vernon and the 50,000 plus acres that he devoted to crops. He was a man who enjoyed fishing and hunting with his dogs True Love and Sweet Lips. He was a man who worked to create relationships with all who he encountered. Because you never know what a person will be able to teach you through their own experiences. He proved himself time and time again through his character, because he was the only person who could say that he didn't really want the power, but go ahead and give it to him anyway. Because he didn't trust anyone else to have the same character that he did. It was his character and humility that won the United States the alliance with France and eventually the Revolutionary War and our freedom. He took a highly respected and highly stressful job as president of the Constitutional Convention and later as president of the United States. To be sure that the revolution that was so long fought would not be disrupted by a lackadaisical Congress and a weak Confederate Articles of the Confederation. It was suggested and quickly shut down that Washington become the first king of the United States of America. And had he been a lesser person, he might have accepted that role. There are some things that we need to ask ourselves, some what-if questions. What if Washington had joined the British Royal Navy? What if, after fighting for the crown during the French and Indian War, he had decided to side with the crown once again during the Revolutionary War? What if Washington were not a man of such great character and grand reputation? We should all be so blessed that he was that man, and even feel more blessed that he chose to serve time and time again, even though the only thing he wanted was to retire and live in peace on Mount Vernon. Let us ask ourselves, how can I serve? What can I do today to carry out the legacy of the father of this great nation? This is Shauna Nevels, a tribute to George Washington. Thank you.